I'd like to introduce to you our afternoon speaker this evening. He's Dries, pronounced like Greece, Dries van Langenhove. He comes to us from Belgium. He's the founder of the most influential youth group, political youth group in Belgium. It's called Shield und Vrienden, which literally means shield and friends. It is an ancient battle cry, a Flemish battle cry that goes back to 1302. These people have long memories, as we all should. And as a matter of fact, a crack investigative team of television journalists looked into the group, and they came back with a breathtaking finding that some of the members of this group were racists. Oh my gosh. Mr. van Langenhove has founded a chain of boxing clubs, and I understand he packs a pretty mean punch himself. He has a bachelor's degree in political science and law from Ghent University, and he was only a couple of months away from his master's degree when he was kicked out of the university for his political views. I think they found him rather too Marxist for their tastes. Yeah. In 2019, he was elected, at that time, the youngest member of the Belgian Parliament, and he served for 4 years in the Belgian Senate. And he has now decided that he can be more effective outside of the Senate rather than inside. And just last month, he took one of the most significant and crucial steps in his life so far. He married. So congratulations, Mr. van Langenhove.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'd like to begin by expressing my gratitude to those who made this conference possible. The accomplishments of Jared Taylor in collaboration with many of you hold significant importance as they pave the way for a lasting impact even after our generations have passed the fire to the next. I'd like to also thank the many journalists that have written slanderous articles about my presence here and will continue to do so in the coming weeks for the free publicity that they provide for my speech here today. Indeed, I'm not just addressing the fine people here in this conference today. No, thanks to the historical time in which we live today, during which we can make use of internet and social media, my words will resonate with thousands, possibly even millions of young Europeans all over the world. This unparalleled window of opportunity, born from swift technological advancements, caught the establishment off guard. The liberty to access information and communicate with millions in an almost unfettered way, such as we have experienced in the past 15 years, has been a historic anomaly. An opportunity that many activists like myself have grasped with both hands, and an opportunity I will gladly make use of today. Yet, regrettably, my friends, the powers that be are now catching up to this window of opportunity that will soon close. So we better make good use of it now that we still can. Thus, I'd like to direct this speech to the many young European nationalists that will get to see it. Today, I'd like to share with you why I, as a young European nationalist, firmly believe that this is the greatest time to be alive. And many of you will not agree at first, because it may increasingly feel as if we're living in hell, as if we're living in some kind of clown world. And I get why people feel that way. Every cornerstone of a healthy society is being deconstructed. Men are no longer men, women are no longer women, and all the mental illnesses in between are applauded and celebrated. Our environment is being polluted on a massive scale. Celebrities, politicians and bankers that go to a private island to molest children are given free rein, while nationalist activists are getting locked up without a trial for going to a protest. Our people are being poisoned with processed foods, with pornography, drugs, and Hollywood wokeness. Our cities, once the center of civilization, are now multicultural hellholes. Given these realities, one might argue that this is anything but the greatest time to be alive. You'd say all of these things don't really make a man happy, but they do present us with what we as Europeans need, an enormous challenge. They give us purpose, and that is why this is the greatest time to be alive. We men of the West, we were not made to just sit back and enjoy life. We weren't made to chase happiness. Those who chase happiness will end up unhappy. Instant gratification is making you depressed. Those who chase meaning and purpose instead of happiness, on the other hand, they will live fulfilling and meaningful lives and thus end up being the happy ones. It's because we Europeans, we weren't made to live an easy life. We are the outcome of hardship and adversity. It's our nature to fight, to struggle, to suffer, to honor our ancestors, to achieve great and glorious things. And I've got good news for everyone here today, because there's never been a better time to achieve those things than now. I'll give you a few examples. When I see how weak our youth has become, how they get beat up at school by non-whites, how they're being dominated, even in places where they're not yet a minority, I don't start whining. I don't start dreaming of the better days when our young youth was strong enough to get on a ship and conquer the world, or when our youth was brave enough to jump out of the trenches and face certain death out of love for their fatherland. No, I don't do that. I don't whine. I don't complain. No, I took action. I've established boxing clubs where our youth can take free boxing classes and work out, and I'm making sure that the many elders, some call them boomers, who do nothing but complain about the weakness of our youth, are donating so that we can keep providing these free boxing classes. Thank you. When I see how the mainstream media, Hollywood, and even the educational system indoctrinates our youth on a daily basis, I don't complain how they're too powerful and too big. No, I took action and launched my own media channel, because I know that in this particular period of time, even a small media channel can win when it has the truth on its side. When I see how our youth has no purpose in life, how they're being brainwashed into individualism and nihilism, I don't start complaining about the passiveness and the apathy of our youth. No, I took action and created Schild en Vrienden, which is now Belgium's most influential political youth movement and the Belgian establishment's worst nightmare. We organize... Thank you. We organize actions and campaigns that reach millions. We help our fellow Flemish people that are less fortunate, and 2 weeks from now we'll have our yearly summer university where we train the leading activists of tomorrow. When I saw how our party political system and our parliament was being corrupted by power and was completely neglecting the will of our people, I didn't evade my responsibility by becoming a defeatist or an escapist. No, I partook in the elections and became the youngest member of Belgian parliament. Thank you. My speaking of the truth and my nationalistic idealism, which made me immune to the corrupting effects of the political system, made the establishment and the media so scared that they were screaming as if my arrival in Parliament was the end of the world. And by giving you these examples of what I achieved on my young age, by taking action instead of complaining, by doing that, I don't mean to brag. No, what I want to do is actually precisely the opposite of bragging. I want to show you all how much can be done if we put ourselves to it. What I did, it isn't rocket science. If I can do it, so can you. We all have different talents, of course, but I don't possess some unique talent that nobody else has. I don't have access to means that other people don't. I don't have rich parents. I wasn't born into a politically connected family. I'm telling you this because a lot of people are making excuses for their cowardice and passiveness by telling themselves that they don't have what it takes. They're lying to themselves that it's the other people that have to do the dirty work. People that possess something they don't, or people that don't have the so-called responsibilities that they do. But that is all a lie. What it takes to be a successful activist for our people isn't the highest IQ, the best oratory capabilities, a lot of money, or being in a position that you have nothing to lose. No. What it takes is a choice. Not everyone has the same talents or the same means, but we all have a choice. Every day we are faced with so many choices. You can choose to act out of laziness and cowardice, or you can choose to act in the interest of your people. You can choose to donate your money to the financial elite, to BlackRock and Vanguard by consuming all day, or you can choose to donate some money to nationalist activists so that they can do what must be done. You can choose to watch porn and become a filthy degenerate, or you can choose to find a suitable wife and become a family man, to become a literal physical part of our future. You can choose to waste your sexual energy on daily masturbation and meaningless dating app sex, or you can use that energy to fuel your daily strive towards greatness. You can choose to be weak and pathetic, or you can start working out and become the best version of yourself. Mens sana in corpore sano, a healthy mind in a healthy body. The Greeks knew it, the Romans knew it, but we seem to have forgotten. Nowhere is that as clear as in America, where the physical degeneration has gone hand in hand with moral and mental degeneration. But you can choose to stop that today. Choose to be an example in your community. Choose to make a difference, however small or big it may be. You can choose to support mega factories owned by nameless and ruthless international capital, or you can choose to support local regenerative farmers so that they can provide for their families. You can choose to numb your mind with video games and television, or you can choose to broaden it by going out in nature and collecting life experiences. You can choose to keep your head low and never speak up because you're afraid to lose some friends, or you can start to speak up and thereby gain the confidence and the persuasiveness that's needed to become a leader. You can choose easy, socially acceptable lies, or you can speak the hard truth and thereby set the first step towards positive change. You can choose instant gratification and end up as a hollow and depressed shell, or you can devote your life to the struggle for our people and become the hero your ancestors want and need you to be. You have a choice. Work out, pay cash, work out, pay cash, start a family, get into nature, join a nationalist movement, stop watching porn, start speaking up, start speaking the truth. You have a choice. You don't have to be the one leading the resistance from the barricades to be a good activist for your people. You don't have to devote your whole life to it like Jared Taylor, Martin Zellner, Nicholas Fuentes, or myself to make a difference. If you make the right choices, you will make a difference. We need all sorts of people with all kinds of talents and means for our struggle to be successful. A few summers ago, I had a good conversation with Viktor Orban, whom I regard as an example of a good and successful nationalist, and he gave me some great advice. He said, Dries, the first step towards making a change is believing that change is possible. And the most important thing to achieve that change in politics is that you need to have a good squad. You need to have a good team, a group of people that you can trust. And Orban is right, of course. Things will change for the better, and we will bring about that change with the help of you all. Every European man and woman listening to this speech can and must join their local squad, their local team of nationalists, and offer whatever talents or means that they may have to make a change. And if you make those necessary choices, you will become what our enemies fear: strong, uncontrollable, loyal. If you make the right choices, you would do what they didn't expect. Our enemies thought that if they would burden us with a new original sin, with the anti-white lies that our European identity is made up of slavery, colonialism, and the Holocaust, that we would bow our heads and abandon our pride of our identity and our heritage. They thought that if they would numb our Faustian spirits with pornography, sports ball, drugs, and other addictive methods of instant gratification, that we would forever abandon our Faustian urge to explore, to overcome, to risk our lives in ventures that can bring us no material benefit. They thought that if they'd censor and punish anyone that dares to speak out, that we would stop asking questions. But they were wrong. Something happened that they didn't expect. It wasn't the degeneracy of the West. No, they expected that. They expected our youth to become weak, fat, and depressed. They expected the family unit to be replaced by the state. They expected the immense surge in antidepressants and suicides. They expected our women to be raped en masse in Europe. They expected over 100,000 to die of overdoses in America each year. They expected this slow decline and eventual death of our people. But they didn't expect that we would resist. They didn't expect that we wouldn't go gently into that good night. They didn't expect that deep inside our European hearts, below that 21st century cowardice, that there was still a tiny yet inextinguishable flame burning inside all of us. A flame that we are now nurturing until the bonfires of resistance will be lighting the whole Western world. Resistance against a great evil. Don't be fooled by the postmodern lie that all is relative and that there is no such thing as good and evil. There is evil in this world. The battle in which we find ourselves today, the struggle for the survival of our people, this is not some kind of disagreement. This is not a differing of opinions. This is not a different view of how to build society. No, they don't want to build anything, let alone Western civilization. No, they want to destroy. That's why it's so easy for them, for our enemies, to get along. That's why they're not constantly disavowing each other or distancing themselves from so-called radical elements. Imagine, if you will, Western civilization as a house. When you want to destroy this house, it's easy to cooperate. Someone using a small hammer has the exact same goal as someone using a bulldozer. They want to destroy. And whatever or whoever helps destroy that house is welcomed. Liberals, Marxists, globalists, bankers, egalitarianists, universalists, Islamists, envious immigrants, Antifa, pedophiles, degenerates, they all get along really well because they all have the same goal: destroying the European people and all that we stand for. Oh, and this, by the way, this isn't some conspiracy. No, they admit it themselves. They want to, and I am citing quotes here, they want to eradicate whiteness. And they even claim world peace can only be reached if there are no more majority white countries left. The same media that claim racism is in the DNA of white people are calling for the eradication of racism. You don't have to read between the lines to see the genocidal rhetoric in that. Just weeks ago, a call to kill all whites in South Africa was met with a deafening silence of the so-called international community, and with an endorsement even by the mainstream media who claim to be defenders of their fairy tale human rights. Our enemies are spewing constant genocidal rhetoric, but the right wing, those who call themselves conservative but conserve nothing at all, are refusing to work together with the nationalists and the radical right. Building a civilization, imagine it again as a house, is far more difficult than destroying it. One man building a staircase in marble will be stopped by someone else wanting a wooden one. And during their everlasting discussions, the house will fall in disarray and be destroyed, just as our civilization is falling in disarray and is being destroyed, while people on the right are discussing whether certain forms of activism, certain topics or certain words are politically correct enough to be used in the defense of our people and our civilization. We must stop this madness at once. Stop being divided over small differences. Don't fall for the trap of a never-ending disassociation of others because they've been called extremists by the press. Don't let them place doubt inside of you. Don't allow yourselves to fight over petty differences between nationalist movements. We must not be divided over what separates us as different nationalists. We must unite against the great evil that lies before us. And a great evil it is, ladies and gentlemen, a great evil it is. I've told you before and I will tell you again, what we are facing today is not some kind of disagreement between progressives and conservatives. It's not a differing of opinions between the so-called left and the so-called right. This is a battle of good and evil. It's a battle between those who want to build and those who want to destroy. We We want to protect the innocence of children. They want to protect child abusers and indoctrinate our children with gender ideology and filth. We cherish the warmth and the beauty of femininity. They want to rip a woman away from her children and turn her into a cog in their capitalist machine instead of a loving mother. We recognize masculinity as the powerful complementary force that takes the risks to build and protect our civilization. They slander masculinity as toxic and want weak men who aren't able to stand up for themselves, let alone protect their families or their people. We venerate beauty. They venerate ugliness. We build cities that feel like home. They build cities that feel like a dystopian hell. We want our people to be safe. They release criminals and import even more. We want to preserve the European peoples. They want to destroy us. We are right. They are wrong. We stand for the truth. They stand for lies. And this truth is the most important thing there is. It is sacred. If there is one thing we must do, it's fight for the truth. If we find the courage to denounce the egalitarian and universalist lies and put forward the truth that the European peoples must be preserved and deserve their own homelands, then all the rest will follow. First, we must get the truth out there in this world of lies, and then the policies will follow. This principle of putting the truth above all else is of the utmost importance to preserve our people. But it is also the solution to everything else. I'll give you an example. The whole transgender debate can be solved if we just dare to speak the truth that there are only two genders and that there is no such thing as being a transgender. It's a mental illness. A woman is an adult female that has reproductive female organs. And in this room it seems silly to even say that. But there are many, many so-called conservatives who will go along with the transgender madness and call transvestites women just because they think the principle of live and let live is more important than the truth itself. It is not. Nothing is more important than the truth. The same so-called conservatives will complain about the perverts entering the girls' locker room and drag queens reading to little children, but they don't realize it's their own fault because they were too cowardly to speak the truth when it mattered and hid behind their intellectually dishonest and lazy live and let live statements. These cowards disgust me more than those on the left ever will. These same people that claim they want to make America great again, but when you ask them, what made America great again in the first place? They shrivel back in fear and will deflect the question by brabbling some nonsense about economic opportunity and the Constitution. No, it was Christianity, nationalism, and most of all, crucially, it was Europeans that made America great. It was Europeans that tamed this great continent and built this great nation. And the less Christian, the less nationalistic, and most importantly, the less European America becomes, the less great it will be. If we want to solve this crisis in this country, that's what we must do. Get that truth out there, and once we achieve that, all the rest will follow. It's that simple. We must get the truth out there. If we do that, we win. And if we don't, out of cowardice, then everything we hold dear will be lost. If we let our enemies have it their way, and if we outsource our political struggle to the so-called conservatives who do nothing but barely slow down the decline, then very soon there will be nothing more left to conserve. There will be no more traditional families, no more classical architecture, no more privacy or freedom. There will not be one school left that hasn't been diversified to the point that it produces only stupidity instead of excellence. All the great institutions will crumble under the destruction of diversity. Planes will be falling from the skies. The electricity will go out. There will not be one statue or monument left standing. Our democracy will turn into a competition of ethnic voting blocks. Terrorism, shootings and riots will become an everyday occurrence all over the West. There will be no more great art, no more truth, no more beauty. Everything will be lost, so much so that eventually there won't even be any more historians in the West to write about our own demise and ruination. And I can hear you saying, but Dries, what you're describing, it's already here. And you'd be right to say so to some extent. But that too is the reason why this is the greatest time to be alive. Because we are now almost in a deep enough crisis for our people to be receptive to the uncomfortable truths that are necessary to start a renaissance, and not yet so deep in the crisis that there is no more possibility for recovery. People are starting to realize that there is no other option than to fight back, and that every form of escapism is temporary and futile. We needed this crisis as a wake-up call, just like the Sumerians needed life-threatening droughts to build the first cities, just like Europeans needed the constant threat of the unforgiving winter to evolve and prepare, to always think ahead, just like the Spanish needed almost every corner of the Iberian Peninsula conquered by Muslim invaders for them to finally set aside their petty differences and unite as a Christian European people for the Reconquista. Just like that, we in the Europe and America of the 21st century, we needed this crisis of mass migration and degeneracy to realize how crucial our identity as Europeans is. We needed to be hit by Mexicans on our own streets. We needed to be dragged to foreign wars by Zionist warmongers. We needed to be forced out of our own cities by Africans. We needed to see what weakness does to our people. We needed all that to realize that we have to become stronger than ever before. We needed this decline to be able to ascend to greater heights than ever before. We needed to be depressed, defamed, slandered, and blackpilled to realize that this is indeed the greatest time to be alive. Because never have our decisions mattered more. Never have they mattered more. Never has the courage of a generation had the potential to save our people and culture from such peril, from such an existential threat. Never have fearless young leaders had such a potential to light the fire of an entire generation. Never have our sacrifices been more needed to save our people from the great evil that lingers before us. And I don't want to hear anyone complain that sacrifices have to be made. My activism has demanded many a sacrifice. I got kicked out of university. I got kicked out of the bank. I got kicked out of every possible payment provider. My house got raided by regime police 2 times, in which they took everything from me. I'm being prosecuted on more accounts than Jeffrey Epstein ever was, and I have never even done anything illegal, let alone morally wrong. I was torn out of my bed by regime police and thrown into jail days before I was to pledge my oath as an elected member of parliament in a desperate attempt of the Belgian regime to avoid me getting juridic protection as a member of parliament. Luckily, I got out in time, thanks to my good lawyers, but they only work for me because I made the sacrifice of paying over 142,000 euros in legal fees to defend myself against the barrage of false lawsuits and prosecutions by the regime in the past years. And I don't want this to scare any of you. I know it sounds as if my life has been hell since I became the #1 political dissident in my country. And in some moments, it sure is like that. It sure felt like hell. But when people ask me whether I feel sorry for the choices that I made in my life, there is not the smallest doubt on my mind that I made the right decision in devoting my life to our people's struggle. I'd say even more, the people standing on the sidelines shouldn't feel sorry for me. I feel sorry for them. Their lives are hollow, empty, meaningless. They serve a system that hates them. They live for nothing but the false promise that material wealth will one day bring them happiness and fulfillment, which it never will. I go to bed every night with the biggest smile on my face. I have worries, of course, just like all of you. But every night when I lay in my bed, I ask myself the question, whether I have done everything in my capacity that day to further the cause of our people's survival, and I sleep well, because the answer is a strong and confident yes. The regime has used all their powers against me, and they have only further ignited the flame burning inside of me. I don't want flattery by the mainstream press. I don't want material wealth. I don't want to sit on the benches of parliament for 40 years and get a ribbon for my service to the regime. No, all I want is to be able to tell my children and grandchildren that I did everything I could to make sure that there is a future for them and for our people in our homelands, that the lands of our ancestors remain the lands of our descendants. A smooth sea never made a good sailor, and I can tell you I've become quite the sailor in the past few years, that's for sure. But I'm glad that I took to the turbulent seas, that I decided to beat the waves, because it has been the most freeing experience in my life. I often talk to businessmen and service clubs, to wealthy and powerful people, but they live a lie. They have all the money in the world, but they dare not speak the truth. They oftentimes don't even dare to make a donation. They will never be able to look their children in the eye and say they did what had to be done. I can. And I wish for you all to be able to do the same. I told you a part of my story as a testament to prove that I know what happens when you threaten the liberal, anti-white regime. But my personal sacrifices are still nothing at all compared to the sacrifices made by our ancestors. Our ancestors, they hunted mammoths in the freezing cold to be able to feed their offspring. They went through hunger, suffering, and danger to be able to forge with each generation the European people. Our ancestors beat back the Mongol hordes and defeated the Muslim invaders to save our Christian Europe. Our ancestors showed what bravery means when they defended the Alamo and when they beat the odds again and again in Rhodesia. Our ancestors would sacrifice their last food and even their own flesh in Ukraine while Stalin starved them just so that their children would survive the famine instead of them and so that the chain of generations could continue. Our ancestors were building cathedrals so big and beautiful they knew it would take multiple generations and they themselves would never see it finished. So don't you come complain to me that you don't have the time for some activism. Our ancestors sacrificed everything. They endured unimaginable hardships to discover new lands and new seafaring routes. A few hundred brave conquistadores sailed to Latin America, burned their ships upon arrival on the shores of the Aztec Empire so that they had no way of retreating, and then went on to conquer it all. American settlers fought violent tribes and tamed a whole continent to build the most powerful nation the earth has ever seen. These men and women are watching you when you complain about not wanting to make sacrifices. Our ancestors fought for months at Stalingrad without a chance of survival, with the cold literally freezing off their toes and with hunger chewing away at their empty stomachs. They fought on in the ruined buildings and even in the sewers because they knew what Bolshevism would mean for their descendants. Our ancestors kept on building great cities while the Black Plague gruesomely wiped out half its populations. They rebuilt cities after they were bombed to ruins in 2 world wars. They are watching you when you lie to yourself that it's too difficult to make a difference. They spilled blood, sweat, and tears for us to be able to inherit the flame of European civilization. Are you going to make them proud by doing your part in saving their heritage and in saving our people? Or are you going to make your ancestors watch as you end their bloodline? As you shrivel in cowardice, they are watching you jerk off to 2 people on a computer screen instead of starting a family and continuing the chain of generations. Are you going to disappoint them by not even being able to intervene when a fellow European is being harassed or attacked? Are you going to let other people claim the soil in which they were buried? I promise you that I won't. And I want you to make that promise with me. I want to make my ancestors proud. I want to continue their legacy. I am, just like they were, prepared to give my life for our people and our future. Nihilists and individualists who have nothing to live for will laugh at us. They will claim it's absurd to be willing to give your life for something greater than yourselves. But we know that if you don't have anything to live for, that if you don't have anything you're willing to die for, that you don't have anything you're willing to live for. Once you accept that there are things that are more important than yourself, that there is a cause that's worth fighting for, every little aspect of life becomes much more fulfilling and meaningful. That is, my brothers and sisters, why this is the greatest time to be alive. Because never have our choices been of such importance for our people. Never in history was our willpower more needed than today. Our struggle as nationalists is so important that the personal hardships we must endure will never outweigh the feeling of fulfillment we achieve through sacrifice for our people. Even though we will have to endure many more hardships before our hardships will ever make a difference, let alone be recognized, we must endure them nevertheless. It is our duty to all those that have gone before us, to the many generations that have shed blood, sweat, and tears for us to be able to continue this chain of generations. It is our duty to make sure that this chain becomes stronger than ever before. It is our duty to make sure that the lands of our ancestors remain the lands of our descendants. And never despair. All the great powers are against us. I am aware of that. I have been caught in the eye of Mordor more than once. But do not despair, because we are not the last man standing. We are the first. We are not the last line of defense. We are the first to attack. We must become the greatest generation of Europeans to have ever lived, or we will be the last generation of Europeans to have ever lived. I choose greatness, and I will devote my life to it, and I hope you will make the same choice with me. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dries, for a remarkable and wonderful and inspiring talk. Yes. I'll take your hand again. Yes.